Good morning and welcome. The beautiful, kind, loving, strong, intelligent woman and legendary financial leader we are honoring today is Eileen Sharkey. It's a beautiful sunny morning here in Colorado on Wednesday, June 16th, 2021. Thank you to everyone here in person and a very warm welcome to each of you joining us online. Is everyone able to hear in the back of the room today? Are you able to hear okay? A little louder? Okay. All right. We won't start over. All the testing we do. Thank you for being here. Your presence means more than you may ever know and is a welcome gift of support. For Eileen's family watching from England, it's evening there, and it's wonderful that you can be with us remotely. My name is Anita Larson, and it is my privilege and pleasure to share in Eileen's celebration of life. Before continuing, would you please take a moment to check your phone and make sure it is silenced? Thank you. Cielo in Castle Pines is the perfect place to be celebrating Eileen's incredible life. She loved living in Evergreen and being in nature. And did you know that Cielo means heaven in Italian? That's pretty special. Although Eileen was a respected business leader, she placed the highest value on family. In all the hectic schedule of life, her time with family was of paramount importance. Every morning, when Eileen came into the office, the first thing she did was light up her family. There was a light that hung below a cabinet, and she would turn that on every morning to see all her beautiful family in photos, which are on the memory table over there, and hopefully you'll get to see those later. She was always aware of her family's interests, their hopes, their dreams, and achievements. Above all else, Eileen will be remembered for the loyalty and love she dedicated to her family. Let's take a few moments to be fully present right here, right now. You may gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. Taking a few deep breaths and bringing to mind a happy memory of Eileen as we pause for a few moments of silent reflection. Silence is not the absence of something, it is the presence of everything. In silence, we experience peace, forgiveness, and universal love. You may blink your eyes open and come back to this sacred time and space to honor Eileen. I invite Eileen's longtime friend and bookkeeper, Barbara Lamb, to come forward for a special prayer.
I would like to say a prayer to show our Lord thankfulness and gratitude for Eileen. Eileen, we love you. The death of someone we love and care about is like the death of part of us. No one else will ever call out from within us quite the same responses, the same feelings or actions or ideas. Their death is an ending of one part of a story. Lord, as we look back over Eileen's life, we ask what we have received, what we can appropriate, and continue on in our own lives, and what must be laid. Our love for her reminds us that our sharing in one another's lives brings both support and pain. Our being parted from her reminds us of our own mortality, and that your love is enduring. We thank you that our love for Eileen draws us together and gives us a new appreciation of one another and of the beauty and fragility of relationships, which mirror your grace and goodness to us. Lord, time's tide may wash her footprints from the shore, but not our love for her, nor the influence of her life upon us. Oops, sorry. Of those things which really matter, which are eternal. Hear this prayer for your love's sake. Amen.
Thank you, Barbara. Steve Roden will grace us with his wonderful voice by singing Conte Partiro, a time to say goodbye in Italian, accompanied by the musical talents of Columbine Entertainment.
Quando sono solo sogno l'orizzonte mancano le parole. Sono solo luce lungi una stanza quando manca il sole. Se tu sei tu come su le finestre. Mostra tutti il mio cuore che hai acceso, chiudi dentro me la luce che ho incontrato per strada. Time to say goodbye. I sì che ormai vissuto con te, adesso sì vivrò con te, partirò su navi per mari che io lo so, non esistono più, con te io li vivrò. Quando sei lontana, lontane con le parole, io solo so che mi come. Tu mia luna, tu sei qui con me. Mio lo sono qui con me. Time to say goodbye. I see che ormai vissuto con te, adesso sì li vivrò con te, partirò su navi per mari che io lo so, non esistono più, con te io li vivrò, con te partirò, su navi per mari che io non so, non esistono più, con te io li vivrò, con te partirò.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Steve told me earlier, if everyone wasn't crying, he didn't do his job. Spirit of life, and also our companion in times of loss, touch those who through this sorrow are reminded of the collective losses in their lives. Loss touches us, the living. It creates a pause in the cycle of life and allows time for self-reflection. In the presence of loss, we become more aware of life. When we lose someone we love through death, there is a dialogue that we continue to carry on with that person. It is the dialogue of promises made, values adopted and lived, and memories actively cherished. There is also the carry-on of life itself. Their light goes out and we continue onward, honoring their role as torchbearer by burning as brightly as we can in our own time alive. Then passing on that torch to our own succeeding generation. Eileen's torch certainly shone bright. She has left her mark on this world and on the people whose lives she touched. Her dedication to her family and her clients will continue to be an inspiration to everyone who knew her. Our hearts are lifted up with love and gratitude for having known Eileen and the impact she made on each of our lives. While we are experiencing grief, let there be some laughter amidst our tears of sadness. Let's remember Eileen's beautiful, warm smile, her sense of humor, and her lovely British accent. Laughter is the elixir that gives us hope. Eileen Sharkey was born at home during World War II in Leeds, Yorkshire, England, to John and Nellie Sharkey. She obtained her degrees from London University, England, and furthered her education when she came to the United States in 1969, attending Newman University in Wichita, Kansas. While in Wichita, she met her future husband, Jim Darling, and they moved to Denver, Colorado in the summer of 1970. They were married in Craig, Colorado in August of 1975 and settled in Evergreen in 1984. Eileen was a genuine pioneer and educator. In 1980, she started her own financial planning firm. 10 years later, she became a founding partner in the financial planning firm of Sharkey, Howes, Wagner, and Javer. The company is now known as Sharkey, Howes, and Javer. Eileen served as a respected leader within virtually every organization in the financial planning world. Her photo graced the cover of Money magazine, along with a very impressive article. She was also written up in Forbes magazine and many others. Eileen was a guest on the Today Show and Oprah. Eileen certainly lived a full life. She and her husband Jim traveled the world. She strongly suggested to colleagues and clients to fly business class, and they were grateful for her advice. Eileen always recommended to her family, friends, and clients to take the time to enjoy life, and she lived by her own advice. She and her husband, Jim, traveled to her native home in England, sometimes 2 to 3 times a year, to spend time with her sister's family. They loved going to the theater in London, watching live performances, and strolling through the many museums. Eileen's husband, Jim, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease over 10 years ago. She has been involved in the Parkinson's Association not only as a support organization for her husband and herself, but she and Jim contributed to the organization. Eileen also gave educational speeches to Parkinson's groups along the Front Range. She contributed to various other charities that were near and dear to her heart. Eileen put her wonderful British accent to use by reading and recording for the blind. Eileen passed away on April 19th of this year due to medical complications developed recently. Her 75th birthday would have been next Monday. Maybe we will remember her on Monday by doing something special to honor her. Perhaps drinking a cup of tea. Her favorite was Yorkshire Gold. Or enjoying one of her favorite desserts. Or raising a glass of champagne in a toast to this incredible lady. Eileen is survived by her loving spouse, James M. Darling, her family in Leeds, Yorkshire, England, her family in Wichita, Kansas, Lisa Akins, her husband Chuck, Jamie Darling, her granddaughters, Ariel Moore, Taylor Darling, and Aubrey Akins. I invite Chuck Akins to come forward and share some memories with us. Oh, you're going to come up together, and Ariel has hers all ready here.
Hi, I'm Ariel. I was Eileen's granddaughter, and I wrote something. When you lose someone, all of your memories with them seem to flood your thoughts. When I lost my grandma Eileen, my heart was and still is broken. But at the same time, I feel so fortunate to have so many amazing memories with her. My earliest memory, I couldn't have been older than 4 years old. Sorry. I was at my grandparents' house in Evergreen, sitting at her desk as light flooded the room and music played. She had Kit Kats in her desk, and she let me have some. Then she picked me up and spun me around the room humming. Fast forward about 20 years, she's buttoning up about 1 million buttons on the back of my wedding dress and fits a strand of pearls she had made special for me around my neck, a huge surprise. She clasps it and gets a good look at me with a proud smile from her and my grandpa. That same warm smile I'll always remember. She always made sure that my sister and I made the best memories with my grandpa Jim. She loved and cared so much about him. It was such a beautiful thing to see a love like theirs. I already miss her so much. She was a strong role model of mine, and I've always looked up to her, even as a little girl. Not only was she passionate about her career, but she made it clear to me that she was also tremendously passionate about us, her family. It's been an odd feeling of knowing she's gone and not being able to visit with her or ask her advice. She always took care of the people she loved no matter what. She never judged and always looked on us with kind and loving eyes. I hope that someday I become half the woman she was. I truly hope she knew how much she meant to us all. My fond memories of her will keep her alive in my heart for as long as I live. My dad and my sister, who weren't able to make it, are just as heartbroken as I am and wish they could be here. They send their love. Thanks.
I just want to start off and thank you all for coming. And as a family, we really greatly appreciate it, all the people here. I just want to kind of reflect on my own kind of personal experiences with Eileen and how I got to know her. And then I have some other notes to read from Jim, her spouse, and then Lisa, the daughter. So I just want to say that when I first met Eileen and Jim, and of course I was dating Lisa at the time, and this is back when they lived on Brook Forest Road here in Evergreen, not where they live now, but it was kind of a ways drive from Evergreen. And I remember going to the house and I thought, man, people actually live up here, you know, because it was just kind of off the beaten path. Of course, I loved it because that's one thing Eileen, she just loved Colorado and just the nature, and it helped me grow appreciation. I've always loved it, but she really helped with just showing me the animals, and she just loved all about Colorado. And I remember one day I asked her, I said, so are you ever going to go back to England? She said, well, I love England, but actually Colorado is my home. I love Colorado. And I'll never forget her devotion to a lot of the activities around Evergreen, as far as being involved in things, but she just loved it in Evergreen and Colorado. So, but when I met them at Brook Forest Road, I was warmly welcomed in as the new guy that's going to marry possibly Lisa at the time, and of course we did get married, and over the years I was brought in as a member of the family and just greatly welcomed by both Jim and Eileen. But my relationship with Eileen was a little more special because at the time I was kind of looking at where I'm going and where I'm heading in my life, and of course Eileen, the great counselor of a lot of things, she guided me on a lot of paths, and especially financially, of course. But she helped me just basically look through my own career goals, and she was an inspiration for me achieving like a financial independence. And she'd always kind of coach me on what I was spending on and things like that. She couldn't help herself, which I truly appreciate, and I still do. And I learned a lot from her. But she gave me a lot of financial planning knowledge, and she always told me the story about how she started in the business of financial planning, and how she was the only woman in a bunch of men, and how she had to push and navigate her way through. But Eileen had that character to do that. She really did, and she was just like mentioned, she was intelligent enough to guide her way and have a plan, and boy did she follow it. And as far as me, she guided me, and I went back to school, and I finished up because I came out of the Air Force, and I was always attached to aerospace, and she helped guide me through a career path through my college degree, and gave me encouragement along the way because, man, I needed it. But every time we would meet on holidays, we would come up here. My wife, we just loved it, coming up here and spending time with Jim and Eileen. Eileen and I would slip over in the corner and have a cup of tea, and we would talk, of course, business and finance. What else, right? So we would talk about what was going on in the world and about the market and where we're heading and all those kind of things. And to this day, I still have that great appreciation, and she helped guide me to that, just to be alert to things. So, and Eileen she was a gracious person, like mentioned, a family. She always provided support when it was needed for her family. She did many things for us, and too many to mention here. The family vacations, I think, will always be etched in our minds, especially Eileen providing all the places to go and what we did. When we came out here, she just set everything up for us and just made it easy for her family. One trip especially that we had during Jim's 70th birthday was she flew the whole family out to Hawaii. And man, I couldn't believe that. I was like, really? She's going to do that? And when we got there, and I know Ariel was there, and it just was a memory that we'll never forget. I mean, and Eileen was the center of it all. And then the other vacations in Colorado, of course, I used to be a pretty avid runner, and I used to do like the Pikes Peak Ascent, and I did that for 3 years in a row about 8 years ago. And one of those instances, Jim and Eileen were there. And she actually and Jim drove to the top of Pikes Peak to meet me at the finish, and nobody else would do that. And I was so impressed with that because, I just went up 13.2 miles straight up, running up there, and I was wiped out and I couldn't breathe. And there they were, and they met me right there and helped me into the car and drove me down where I could get some air. But I'll never forget that because she was there at the start, and that's just kind of how she was. She, and then we stayed at the Garden of the Gods Lodge there, and she had set that up, and it was a beautiful stay. And of course, she knew the manager, so she had it all arranged. But our last trip together, we rented a cabin house thing from a people that owned it, actually lived in Wichita. It was a VRBO, and Jim and Eileen drove out there to Durango. And in Durango, we sat, and I remember sitting when they were there on the couch there, and we talked again, business and finances, and that was my last good time talking to her about things like that, and I'll never forget it. It was very cherished. So those memories I always will keep, and I greatly, just will never forget them. But now I want to kind of read a letter from my wife, Lisa. She wanted me to read this, and I'll read this just right off the note here. So Lisa's memory, she said, the first time I remember meeting Eileen was when I was about 6 or 7 years old. Dad and Eileen took me to see the Fantasia movie. Little did I know at the time that she would end up being a second mom to me. I looked up to her, and to tell you the truth, I sometimes felt nervous around her, but it was an emotion that ceased to exist as I matured in age. When we went to Hawaii with the family, we had a touching moment between each other, and it will always be a nice memory to look back on. I just wish that I could hear that soft British accent and voice one more time. And then I want to close with something that Jim gave us last night. He wrote this down for us, and he wanted me to read this. So this is his words. I remember the first time I met Eileen. We were introduced to each other by a mutual friend. I heard her voice, and she said, "Hello, how are you?" And I'm Eileen. Forgive me, I'm trying to get the accent down, but I just can't. She kept on talking with that accent. Oh, that British accent. I looked into her eyes, and I said to myself, that's for me. I haven't stopped loving her from that moment. The only thing I regret is that she is not here celebrating. But she is. I feel like she's with us. So even though we mourn Eileen's passing, our great memories of her and all those special moments together with her will always be etched in her family's hearts and minds. We will miss her greatly. But as a family, her influences are all around us, and we'll never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck and Ariel. Eileen's family in England wrote some beautiful memories, and I will share those with you on their behalf. The piece is called I Remember. Her sister Anne, I remember with love and gratitude all the wonderful holidays we had together, all the trips to Scotland, London, Wales, Ireland, and more. All of them filled with fun and laughter. The generosity, kindness, and thoughtfulness shown to all of us through the years. Her brother-in-law, Ray, I remember Eileen arranging a surprise meal for my 75th birthday at a luxurious hideaway restaurant in Ireland. Her help in choosing a garden bench when we were at the Chelsea Flower Show. Her nephew, Mark, I remember all the special toys, among them a cowboy outfit with an electric shaver and a crazy car which cartwheeled on a track. They were all so different from anything here. She took such care in choosing gifts for us. She told me that she watched the children in the toy shop and often chatted with them to see what they preferred so that she would not make a mistake. I remember going on muleback in the Grand Canyon with Eileen and Jim. It was the highlight of my visit. Her nephew, Anthony, I remember when she came here, she went straight to the sweet shop and bought bags of sweets to put in a bowl. Such a treat, as we did not get sweets when we were young. I remember a lovely weekend when Louise and I went to London, and Eileen secretly spent ages trying and succeeding to get tickets for The Sound of Music, because she knew that was Louise's favorite. The times when all of us would spend hours together playing a huge game of Liverpool Rummy, which was always accompanied by howls of laughter. Her niece, Jane Marie, I remember when I was a teenager, I desperately wanted to have my ears pierced. One Christmas, a box came with a pair of beautiful earrings, and I realized that the gift included having my ears pierced. I am now 52 years old and still remember how much that gift meant to me. Once when I was young and in the hospital, Eileen sent not one, but 3 get well cards. I thought that was such a kind thing to do. As young children, Eileen and Jim took us round the London sights and to our first West End theater trip to see Barnum. It was a magical experience. Auntie Eileen was a wonderfully kind and generous auntie from our earliest childhood to the present day. She has also been a lovely great aunt to my children, and we shall all miss her very, very much. Her niece Claire, I remember visiting her in London with the children, and on one occasion, losing Evie on a tour of Buckingham Palace, talking to her about books on our family weekends away, meeting at the campsite in France, and playing cards under the umbrella in the rain. Most of all, I remember, and I will miss, her warm hugs and her delighted, welcoming smile whenever and wherever we met over all these lovely years. Her sister Anne, and Claire's last words say it perfectly for all of us. May you rest in peace, Eileen. I invite Eileen's longtime friend and bookkeeper, Barbara Lamb, to share her tribute with us.
I'll use my glasses this time. Okay. No, maybe I'll take it out. Oh, yes. I loved Eileen as my boss and my longtime friend of 12 years. She hired me as their independent bookkeeper. Eileen was always professional, proud, and eager to leave to work at her Denver office. Eileen was very thorough in everything she did. She was very proud, yet very private of her accomplishments in the financial planning world. She would tell me that her focus was primarily helping women understand their finances and future needs. I do miss her British accent and smile. Traveling up to Evergreen from Centennial all those years, always gave me exciting animal experiences. One morning, as I got out of my car, walking towards their front door, I heard footsteps behind me. As I turned slowly around, there was a very large female elk following right behind me. I quietly gasped and carefully reached and rang the doorbell. As Jim opened the door, I whispered to him, "Look behind me." Jim replied wittingly, "Oh, she must like the smell of your perfume." I rushed into the house. Eileen chuckled and hurried me into her home office to view the oncoming elk family coming through their property. She loved living in Evergreen. I love you and miss you, Eileen, and pray that you are now at peace.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was a beautiful tribute. And we can all of us here in Colorado can picture those elk. I don't really know if it was a perfume or not, but on behalf of Eileen's Evergreen friends, I will share some of their wonderful memories with you. Marilyn Sandifer's connection to Eileen was through two Parkinson's groups. Eileen was often the star of the meeting when she would bring in articles of what was happening in the UK regarding Parkinson's. The UK was often ahead of the US when it came to new things. She would give us a report that offered hope to our Parkinson's patients of what was to come here. She had a great sense of humor, rather dry as Brits are prone to having. She would say something with a straight face, then would break into a cute little grin, so we knew it was okay to laugh. The meetings were more fun, informative, and educational when Eileen was there. From Rebecca Martin, Eileen was the person you went to if you had a thorny problem, whether you were a client or a friend. She had an uncanny way of quickly analyzing the situation and offering suggestions that were original, helpful, and right. Eileen was sure generous with her knowledge, her time, and even Jim. When I was having serious back problems and needed an injection, Eileen arranged for Jim to be my driver. She also encouraged Jim and me to walk around Evergreen Lake together. We could both get exercise and have a companion. Ginny Boshin says Eileen was an eclectic reader. As a member of the Literate Ladies, Eileen personified the meaning of literate. Her comments were often infused with a dry sense of humor, and certainly logical and rational. Knowing the book she suggested would be a thoughtful read, I never let her suggestions slip by me. She is missed and not forgotten. Linda Kirkpatrick remembers when she first met Jim and Eileen at a CAE event. Linda was taking pictures, and Eileen asked her what was the most exciting thing that had happened to her that day. What a pleasant way to start a conversation. Linda had just finished jury duty in a criminal trial where a pedestrian had been killed by a drunk driver. She told Eileen about her plans to help the convicted man speak to groups about drinking and driving. And Jim volunteered to provide transportation for him. Carolyn Alexander and Eileen often talked about taking trips together to watch the cranes in Kansas, but they never did. They did have a guided tour of the flowers on the Mount Goliath Trail at Mount Evans. Eileen arranged this with a woman she had met at one of her many conferences. They ran into a friend of Carolyn's who took Carolyn aside and asked, "Is she the Eileen Sharkey?" Carolyn assured her that she was. They enjoyed being together every week at breakfast, sharing and laughing over what they had done the previous week, and seeing all the other familiar faces in the restaurant, the Lakeshore Cafe. Carolyn was also fortunate to share a special dinner with Eileen in Vail many years ago to celebrate the day Eileen became a U.S. citizen. A very special event indeed. Lurley Bickford, a member of the Literate Ladies, recounts a club meeting at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. While everyone was discussing the day's hot topic of the toilet paper shortage, someone remembered a comment that Eileen had made during a book review in early 2020. Always the scholar and analyst, Eileen asked the club members what they thought people would stockpile in advance of the crisis. No one came up with her answer, which was prophetic: toilet paper. I invite Linda, Ray, and Dennis Means to come forward. They are past presidents of the Colorado Institute of Certified Financial Planners, and Dennis served on the national board. Linda and Dennis are 20-plus year members of a monthly study group with Eileen.
Is that too high for you? Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name's Dennis Means, and Linda and I are really honored to have been asked to spend a few minutes with you to remember a person that has, in some way, touched each one of us. I first became aware of Eileen in 1979. I had left a career in education to join a financial planning firm in the Bay Area of California. I was asked to read some articles about how to build a successful financial planning business. You might guess who the author was of some of those articles was this person from Denver, Colorado, by the name of Eileen Sharkey. It's interesting, I remember at the time thinking, what an interesting name for someone that's going to deal with people's money. The last name Sharkey? So anyway, I began my study to receive the Certified Financial Planner designation. In the meantime, my wife and I decided to move back to Colorado before I completed the process of getting my CFP. I had to take one more class. The class was taught by, you guess it, Eileen Sharkey. Well, I have to admit, I was somewhat starstruck. Here was one of the very people in the profession that I looked up to teaching this class. So I received my CFP in 1984, but after the class, the friendship with Eileen and myself grew. Eileen was always available to me for advice in financial planning, working with client issues, and also how to help my business grow. For that, I'll always be indebted to Eileen.
I first learned about Eileen reading articles in Working Money in the Rocky Mountain News. I was the Summit County Treasurer for 12 years and ending my term. And I had been counseling all those ski people on why they might want to put money into our retirement plan that I was the chairman of. I read that first article and I knew I had found my next career. Soon I was a certified financial planner and I attended my first meeting of the Colorado Society of the Institute of Financial Planners. What a term. At the end of that meeting, Eileen walked over toward me and she said, believe it or not, hello, I'm Eileen. How can I help you, and tell me about your business? Isn't that the way we all met her? How can I help you? And she continued that every time we met. Like Dennis, I was starstruck. Eileen Sharkey offered to help me. She always did so generously, and she smiled when I explained that she was the reason I became a certified financial planner. I soon learned she was royalty. She served on almost every board in the profession, but her elegant demeanor and her accent just made you feel like you were with royalty all the time. Because she believed so much that financial planning should be made available to everybody, she worked tirelessly in pro bono opportunities in inspiring everyone else, but especially herself, to speak as often as possible, community college, lifelong learning, to help us all become financially proficient.
Isn't this fun? We get to tag team with each other.
Just like old times.
Just like old times, yeah. Well, in 2009, after having served on the National Board of Certified Financial Planners, I was asked to serve as the chair of the selection committee for the P. Kemp Fain Jr. Award. This is the award that's the highest award that the financial planning profession can grant. Eileen's name came up as one of the possible recipients. It was interesting that when it came time for the vote, there, as I recall, there were like 5 individuals that were in the running. Eileen won unanimously, and she became the award recipient of this highest award in the financial planning profession.
About 22 years ago, the president of the Colorado Society for Certified Financial Planners decided we should have study groups, and 3 were formed. One included Eileen, Dennis, Pat Cummer, who was president at that time, Mary Beth Mitchell-Moore, Randy Cook, Phil Luckock, and Harv Meslin. And as Anita told you, we have been meeting every month for 22 years. We couldn't wait for Eileen to come back from one of the partner trips to study the markets around the world, or to come back from her wonderful study group in Europe. We learned so much from a lady who had a knack for taking the very complicated and making it understandable. What would we ever have done without her and her ease and her grace in helping us understand and study our profession?
Well, I know that each of us has a story to tell of the influence that Eileen has had on all of us. I always admired Eileen as a leader, a developer of a brand new profession. A former colleague and partner of Eileen's, Dick Wagner, once said that she was instrumental and at the heart of the development of a brand new profession in the 20th century. And that's absolutely the truth. She was one of those pioneer people. I had the honor of introducing Eileen at 2 national FPA conferences as a keynote speaker. And she always talked about the profession of financial planning and the importance of fee-based planning, which, as we all know, those of us that are in the financial planning business, that's a huge evolution, because most people came into the career, selling insurance, mutual funds, whatever, earning commissions. And Eileen was a proponent of the fee-based planning process, always with an emphasis on doing what is right for the client, not what is right for the pocketbook of the planner. If you focus on the client, then you will be successful as a financial planning practitioner. Those words have always stuck in my head, and they came straight from Eileen.
Eileen, your friendship has been appreciated by all of us. Your insight, your ability to bring wisdom to every conversation and to bring us back to center will always be something we remember. You led with the highest ethical standards. Excellence, a commitment to serving all people in the financial plan, to bring financial planning to all people, and to promote women in that profession that was once mostly men. You did it all with compassion, understanding, and most of all, humor. Oh, the times we all laughed together. Your spirit will live on. It will inspire all of us, no matter what our career, to do what we do for the best of all people and to do our best as we do that. You are dearly missed.
Thank you, Linda and Dennis. Really appreciate that. Larry Howes, friend and business partner with Eileen for over 30 years, would like to say a few words.
We wrapping up now? Okay. It is a celebration, truly. I'm looking at some of the photographs over here that, well, they're memories, but they just sort of led me down the path of some better memories. Everyone's going to have their own, and mine follow a different. Joel and I were talking a little while ago. Not having Eileen around is going to take a lot of the fun out of our little business here. We've seen a lot of success, gone a lot of places. Well, about 1989, during one of these political things, and you heard about all these political things Eileen did. She was president of everything. We were at some convention, I think in Vancouver. Drove up the coast, went over to the island. We had some things to talk about. So we were out under a crummy little picnic bench by a little snack stand for several hours. She was eating a sandwich, some Canadian thing, I don't know what it was, with a knife and fork. Okay, it's fine. I'd only known her about a year then. I didn't know whether that was a thing or not. Well, it didn't really have any impact on me until the Snickers bar. And people think, oh no. Yes, oh yes. Eileen eat a Snicker bar with a knife and fork. Took her 20 minutes. We were talking about some things, great. And she just thought that was the most natural thing on earth. I eat them, wrapper and all, but she made a real thing out of it. Eileen was a clean and tidy eater. Okay, it's just a very important part of her character. Those of you that have heard me make the comment of, gee, Eileen, why don't you order some beaks and feet for lunch? Really didn't mean much to anybody, except for Joel and Jim, who was there at the time. Probably 15 years after what I refer to as the Snickers incident, we were someplace in China at what was supposed to be a pretty nice place. They're very rare in China, and this wasn't really either. But she ordered something, came in a big bowl, and yeah, there was a chicken foot sticking up, you know, like the chicken was hanging upside down with his feet in the air out of the bowl. And if you hadn't had much interaction with Eileen on a personal side, you'd know it was just destroying her soul. She just sat there. Who knows what was in it? I'm the one that added the beaks to it, but who knows what was in it? She never touched it. I know it really upset her. Later that night at the hotel, we were wrapping up a couple of things and she needed a drambuie in a big way. And I said, Eileen, just stick to the rice. She said, well, we're trying to enjoy and pick up some of the history and culture here. I said, well, yeah, fine. Not a lot of that left. But the most giddy, enthusiastic, and happy I have ever seen her was actually also in China. We'd been doing a bunch of work and stopped off someplace with terracotta warriors. And I had no idea what a piece of history that was to her. That was probably right at the top of her bucket list. We all went in, Joel and I and Jim and Mindy, we all went in and we're wandering around. No Eileen. She was still outside. It's a stadium covered, humidity controlled, as opposed to the rest of the environment, actually clean. No Eileen. She was outside, literally around the door. And I can't imagine Eileen ever doing that little excited little running thing, you know. I'm really enthusiastic. That's what she was. She could not wait to open that door and take that in. The only real piece of history, and she loved history, had to be legitimate. The only piece of real history left in China after the Cultural Revolution are those guys in the ground. We couldn't get her out of it. There was dinner and things afterwards, so we had to drag her out of there. But it's sad to me that I know she wanted to go back. Take Jim, go back, see that again. Some of the other places that we were there quickly because we were working and had someplace else to go. She just didn't get the opportunity. It's really unfortunate. You see a little success in life, you don't get an opportunity to enjoy it. Philosophically, most of the people in the room know that money's not life. It's just a thing. If you have something you want to do, someplace you want to go, don't wait. Go. Don't wait for the right time of year. Don't wait for the circumstances. Certainly don't wait on money. Just go. For our time on earth here is short. It truly is, and it's shorter for some. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you for everyone who spoke up here today. Eileen lived an incredible life. We could go on for hours, but we're not going to. You're all being very patient with the whole process here. Instead of a traditional guest book to sign, there are share a memory cards with pens on the tables. You are each invited to write your special memory of Eileen on one of those cards. Her family may turn that into a keepsake book and read your memories aloud on special occasions or maybe on a day when they're really, really missing her. And there's a place on the front for you to write your memory. On the back, there's a name, email, how we knew each other. If there is a sticker below the order of service on your program, it is your lucky day. You get to take home one of the teacups or flower arrangements on any of the tables. And if you don't want that, maybe you'll make someone's day and gift it to someone. Please allow Eileen's family to enter the buffet first, and you may follow when you are ready. Also, tables and chairs are set up outside with umbrellas. There's a wonderful waterfall out there, and if it wouldn't have been so hot today, for those of you watching online, it's 100 degrees here today. That's unusual for us, but we plan to have it outside, and it is beautiful out there. Also, the tables are all set up for you to eat. We realize that as we continue on in our life, we can draw strength from Eileen and her legacy. We can choose to be aware of how she continues to deepen our own relationship to living by all that she gave us and taught us in her lifetime here. Eileen, you made the world a better place. Your heart and vision will be missed. At the end of our days, what truly matters? How is the value of our days measured? It is not our success. It is our significance. What matters is not what we learned, but what we taught. What matters is not our competence, it is our character. What matters is how long we will be remembered, by whom and for what. Living a life that matters does not happen by accident. It is not a matter of circumstance. It is a matter of choice. The life of Eileen Sharkey that we remember truly, truly mattered. When we see the examples that Eileen set and the difference that she made, we will remember her. So long as we live, Eileen too will live on in us as we bring to mind everything we learned from her. Eileen, memories of you are in our hearts forever, and we know that memories of us are in your heart forever. You are missed, you are loved, and you will always be remembered. Thank you for all that you were to your family, friends, clients, colleagues, and community. May the peace that passes all understanding, the peace of the Spirit, which the world can neither give nor take away, be among us and abide in our hearts now and always. Amen.